Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Got a good show for you guys today. We're going to talk a little bit more about net neutrality, also about Mick Mulvaney and the CFPB. Turns out he's got a little bit of a conflict of interest as well. Very interesting report from TYT Investigates, and I'm going to talk about that. We've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders defending Donald Trump on his Pocahontas. That's amazing. I didn't get to talk about the Pocahontas thing yesterday because it was too fresh. It had just broken like right before the show. I didn't have time to prepare the clips and stuff. But again, that's a fun story and also ridiculous that anybody could defend that. But here's Sarah Huckabee Sanders defending it. Then we've got Michael Flynn. Is he ready to flip? That's an interesting story. And of course, Project Veritas tries to take down the Washington Post. The Washington Post takes them down instead. Awesome. I love that story. There's a lot of detail into that. So there's a lot of detail in both the Flynn story and, well, there's a lot of detail in a lot of the stories, especially the net neutrality story as well that we have. So stick around. It's going to be a great show. These are fantastic stories filled with a lot of information, a lot of nuance. So we'll go through it. We'll break it down and all that stuff. So, all right. That said, I want to make sure everybody give me, okay, let me rephrase that. I want to ask you guys to please make sure to give me a like and a share. So let me phrase that correctly. And let's just do something real quick here. Okay. Always watching the chat. So, anyway. So give us a like, give us a share if you haven't already. Please support us, Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's the way that you can help out the show. And of course, I thank everybody for helping out because you guys are awesome. All right. That said, let's get into the stories. Like I said, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So we'll start out with some fun Sarah Huckabee Sanders. All right. Now, yesterday, President Trump got himself in a little bit of trouble during a ceremony to honor a group of Native American veterans. So this is about the most, one of the more important things a president can do as far as the ceremony goes is to honor the veterans, right? These people were, part of the Native American Navajo code talkers that actually helped us beat the Nazis in World War II by breaking the German code. So very, very important contribution to our country and our armed forces. So President Trump brings them in to honor them and then, of course, says this.
You're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special.
I don't know. I don't know what to say with that, man. I don't know what to say about that whole thing. He can't help himself. Okay? He's got to say offensive things at all times, especially to Native Americans. Okay? No, look, he probably thought, and this is probably how his mind goes, is, oh, Native Americans, Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. Hey, I'm going to make this ridiculous joke. It never occurred to him that that would actually be super, super offensive. And not just offensive, but also at a really bad time, although there is never really a good time for that kind of racial joke. But you're supposed to be honoring and thanking these people who served their country. And again, they helped us beat the Nazis. Their contribution was incredibly important. Okay. So, no, just everything about this is an absolute fucking disaster. Okay. But there's that. You can expect that from Donald Trump. This is not a surprise anymore. Now here comes the defenses. Now Sarah Huckabee Sanders, of course, when asked by reporters, hey man, why would the president say something like that? She had this to say.
Sarah, at the event that the president just did with the Navajo code talkers, he referred to Pocahontas being in the Senate. Why did he feel the need to say something that is offensive to many people while honoring the Navajo code talkers, these genuine American
I think
heroes?
What most people find offensive is Senator Warren lying about her heritage to advance her career.
Okay, look, I've had my problems with Senator Warren. I respect a lot of the work that she's done, but she has failed the progressive movement in quite a few ways. And I do believe that in some ways she's a political opportunist. But that said, right, that's not true at all. That is a made-up smear made up by Scott Brown, her opponent in Massachusetts that she crushed. Okay, so they made up she lied about being a Cherokee and in order to get advanced in her career and all that stuff. No, that's not true. There's actually no evidence that she had benefited at all from that claim of being like an 8th or a 27th or however much Native American, Cherokee, whatever, right? So, and again, okay, so he said the Pocahontas thing Trump did to the Native Americans, by the way, in front of a picture of Andrew Jackson, okay? He has absolutely no respect. And to continue saying this smear against, Elizabeth Warren, and to have Sanders come out and also say that same smear is just, there's no respect there. There's absolutely zero respect for Native Americans here, okay? So, now, I've got more video, and again, it's the same sort of deflection and repetition, that kind of defense of Trump. Let's watch.
Kristen.
Why is it appropriate for the president to use a racial slur in any context?
I don't believe that it is appropriate for him to make a racial slur or anybody else.
This is a racial slur, so why is it appropriate for him to use
I think,
that?
like I said, I don't think that it is, and I don't think that was certainly not the president's intent.
Does he see
I think,
political
again, like I
value
said, I
in-
think the more offensive, the most offensive thing.
Racially?
I'm sorry?
Does he see political value in calling people out racially? Why use that?
Look, I think that Senator Warren was very offensive when she lied about something specifically to advance her career. I don't understand why no one's asking about that question and why that isn't constantly covered.
Man, look, I don't know why this Elizabeth Warren thing is not constantly covered. Well, it was constantly covered by right-wing media. But as for the rest of the world, we saw that there is no evidence that what she had claimed had actually helped her career. That's why they're not covering it. And by the way, this is what we call a gigantic deflection. Racial slur, what are you talking about? No, it's not a racial slur. Pocahontas, not offensive at all. I really enjoyed the movie. I know she didn't say that, but come on. You don't think that they haven't made that defense? But Elizabeth Warren, how offensive actually saying that you were a minuscule part in Native American in order to help your career. How offensive! Racial? No, we didn't make it racial at all. Okay, so how the hell is calling somebody Pocahontas not considered racial? You're specifically pointing out that, hey, that's a Native American name. Come on. This is ridiculous. And of course, not at all surprising, given Trump's history of racism. But again, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is probably the worst because it's really surprising the lows that the people around him in his orbit go. These are the people that I should actually know better. Trump, I don't think has an excuse. He's just an idiot and a racist. And old school racist is that. Everybody else around him, they should be smarter. They should know better. But they're not. They're just not. But see, here's the thing. Trump is the it of the Republican Party. And I keep trying to hit this home, right? Because there is no, ooh, got to reach out to Trump supporters. No. No, you don't. There are certain people that voted for Trump because, hey, we're tired of this system. Those are the people that you can actually reach. Those are not the hardcore Trump supporters. That is not the third of this country that thought that maybe it'd be a good idea to vote in a racist, sexist moron. Because we actually like the racism and sexism. We actually like the fact that he's an idiot. Because we're idiots too. But he's a rich one, so we aspire to be like him. Those are the people that you can't reach out to. And those are the people that are also serving next to him. So, look, we should not be surprised when the rest of the party looks exactly like him. Okay? Because they were always like him, and now they're just more open about it. Okay. We're going to move on here. We'll talk about Mick Mulvaney. But first, I do have a big shout out here to give one of the viewers on the Super Chat. Let me go and find this. Nicholas Miller giving, I'm not sure how much that is in dollars, but thank you so much. You're awesome. So, again, I have the best audience in the world. And, again, I love you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You keep the show going through doing that and through Patreon and just through watching and sharing and giving us likes. I can't appreciate it more. So thank you so much, Nick. You're awesome. Okay. Let's continue. Let's go with Mick Mulvaney. So this is a interesting story that is continuing from yesterday. Did I actually? Yeah. Okay, there it is. Okay. Now, Mick Mulvaney is President Trump's pick to head the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, yesterday I talked about the fact that he shouldn't be the current acting director. There's actually two directors right now. Mulvaney is claiming that he's the director. Leandra English is also claiming that she's director. She's launched a lawsuit against Mulvaney to prevent him from actually taking over the CFPB. So, you know, I talked about all that yesterday, but today I actually do want to talk about some of Mulvaney's conflicts of interest and the reason why he was actually chosen to run the CFPB. So, number one, I mean, the biggest conflict of interest is, of course, the donors and who his donors are and what they actually want and what he has actually done for them. So I'm going to go down that list. And this is, I'm going to get a little bit of help from TYT Investigates. Now, Ken Klippenstein wrote this amazing piece that I'm going to read some from here. He wrote that Trump's controversial pick to head the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Mick Mulvaney, received some of his most generous political contributions as a congressional candidate and a congressman from financial groups, including Bank of America, the American Bankers Association, and the Credit Union Association, according to data maintained by the Center for Responsive Politics. They, of course, track money in politics and where this money comes from, where it goes. Okay. That's the money that we can actually tell. There is also dark money that we can't track that goes through things like super PACs. But for the money we can track, of course, we can go to the Center for Responsive Politics and see where the money's going and from who. All right. Now, over the course of Mulvaney's 4 congressional runs, from 2009 to 2016, Bank of America, the American Bankers Association, and the Credit Union Association gave $20,951, $32,500, and $30,250 to Mulvaney, respectively. So he's got all that money in legalized bribes from the banks that actually helped him get reelected. Okay. Now, this is important because the CFPB happened to be established by Dodd-Frank in response to the crisis of 2007-2008 that was caused by banks. Huh. Okay, so now the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, by the way, is one of the really, really good things that was established by Dodd-Frank that hasn't been chipped away at, okay? Or at least hadn't been chipped away until we got President Trump, who, with Mulvaney's help, has actually been rolling back some of the financial protection rules. Now, this organization, this agency was literally created to police these financial institutions and to help people who have fallen victim to some of the predatory scams from these institutions and actually help some of these people get their money back. Well, how much? Well, it's not a small sum. Since 2011, the CFPB has recovered nearly $12 billion for consumers. That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money that was essentially stolen from these people through predatory practices of these banks, in which the CFPB stepped in and said, actually, no, we ain't having any of that. You're going to have to give the money back. We've actually got real penalties. We actually have real restitution. We're going to help these people that you screwed over get their money back. And that's exactly what they did. It's about $11.8 billion since 2011. It's no wonder why the banks despise the CFPB, as well as Mulvaney. As I said, when he was in Congress, Mulvaney, and I said that yesterday, he had voted to dismantle the CFPB, saying, oh, no, they've got too much power. There's too much over-regulation. We can't have that. We can't have a government agency actually coming in there and protecting the people against the banks. No, we can't have any of that. So Mulvaney is definitely a friend of the banks. And he did this all, of course, because the banks, he loves the banks, and the banks give him money. So, but the money isn't the only thing. Now, prior to his OMB position, Mulvaney, when he had represented South Carolina's 5th Congressional District, and some of his top donors during the House races were institutions that he would now regulate as CFPB director. So he gets all this money, and then he also gets the power to regulate the banks. I wonder who he's going to help if he's the director of the CFPB. Okay. Now, one of the financial institutions that also will benefit from Mulvaney, and who has also given Mulvaney a lot of money, is the payday lenders. Now, these people are the bottom of the barrel of lenders. Okay. They're the lenders of last resort. So if you've ever had to get a payday loan, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. You do not go to these places if you're doing well. You go to these places if you're in a dire emergency, and they will make sure that you pay for it. And a lot of people end up getting stuck and trapped into these debt cycles because of the very, very high interest rates that these loans, these predatory loans, are based on. So, as I said, bottom of the barrel. Okay. Now, in 2016, Grupo Salinas, which owns one of the largest payday loan chains in the country, Advance America, contributed about $5,000 to Mulvaney's campaign. Last month, the CFPB introduced new strict regulations on payday loan practices, prompting Advance America's spokesperson to call on President Trump to intercede. So, look, Trump sends the guy who takes all this money from the industry to regulate the industry. Is that a surprise? It shouldn't be. This is Trump saying, hey, don't worry, bankers. I got your back. I'm going to send my boy, Mulvaney, who's taking all this money from you guys, to come get your back. That's what this is about. And that's not all. During the 2016 election cycle, J.P. Morgan Chase and the Mortgage Bankers Association ranked among the top contributors to Mulvaney's campaign committee, donating $9,200 and $9,000 respectively. And in March of 2013, Albert Haigi, chairman, president, and CEO of First Financial Bank USA, contributed the maximum personal amount to Mulvaney's campaign. Now, again, is that any surprise? Who does Mulvaney work for? Your guess is as good as mine. The CFPB, by the way, has oversight over these commercial lending institutions as well. So all these different banks that have happened to give Mulvaney tons and tons of money in campaign contributions, legalized bribes, he's now going to have control over them. So now Mulvaney, as I said, also has connections to credit unions under CFPB oversight. Beyond the $30,000 given to him by Credit Union Association, in 2012, Founders Federal Credit Union was also a top contributor to Mulvaney, giving him a total of $5,000. In 2011, the Founders FCU president gave Mulvaney, again, the maximum amount allowed at the time, and another $1,000 in 2013. And according to a post-travel disclosure form, Mulvaney and his wife traveled to meet with the Founders Federal Board of Directors and senior management at a West Virginia spa and golf resort in October of 2011 to discuss issues and regulations regarding the financial services industry and credit unions. The trip was paid for by Founders Federal, according to Mulvaney's financial disclosure report to Congress. He also keeps a small sum of money at Founders Federal. So, look, man, all these different banking connections, that is a conflict of interest. That is clear and simple. Do you really expect him to regulate the banks when the banks have given him so much money? See, this is what we talk about when we talk about the swamp. Does it look like Trump has drained the swamp? You've got to be out of your mind to believe that. This is the swamp. This is Swamp 101. Appoint a guy who's received millions of dollars from the banks, or thousands of dollars from the banks, and put him in a position to regulate the banks. And what's worse is that Trump ran against the banks. Now, if you're a Trump voter and you are mad at the global financial elite, you must feel pretty stupid right now. At least I would hope so. Like, dude, you ran commercials, you ran ads, you said, I'm going to take on the bankers, I'm going to fight the banks, I'm going to make sure that you guys get a fair shake, right? I'm going to make sure that Washington and the global financial elite and Wall Street are not crushing you anymore. And now he's like, Wall Street, I love Wall Street. The banks, no, we actually have to help the banks more because they're getting crushed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's who Trump is. This guy is sticking up for the elite. He is defending the power of the elites, the bankers, to steal from you. And if you haven't figured it out by now, well, then I don't think you ever will. Sad. I don't think I say that enough. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll get ready for the next segment. I'll be a minute, so stay right here. Be right back. Back and around the nation, right? So, welcome back to the show. Told you to be quick. Before I get into the next segment, please make sure to give us a like and a share if you haven't already. And thank you. I really appreciate that. Again, thank you to everybody who helps out the show by liking and sharing and using the super chat, and as well as the patrons. So, before I get into the stories, I want to ask you guys a question. I was thinking, what are your thoughts on moving the time of the show to 4 o'clock Eastern? I'm kind of curious because I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know. Is it a better time? Is it a worse time? I want to get your thoughts. So let me know. You can tweet me at TYT Nation or at Jeff's Politics, and let me know what you think about possibly moving to a different time slot, just an hour ahead. Just a thought I've had. Okay. With that said, let's go to net neutrality. It's a very important story. Telepresence service tailored for the hearing impaired requires high-definition video that is of sufficiently reliable quality to permit users to perceive subtle hand and finger motions in real time. And pay prioritization may have other compelling applications in telemedicine. Likewise, for autonomous vehicles that may require instantaneous data transmission, letter to prohibitions on paid prioritization may actually stifle innovation instead of encouraging it. Commercial arrangements that entail prioritizing such traffic could ensure the low latency levels needed to achieve the high level of data quality necessary for such services to provide. Okay, so basically, let's kind of break that down a bit simply. Oh, look, these regulations, they're stifling this regulation that could help people, deaf people, and people that benefit from telemedicine. So, I mean, we should have those people allowed to have paid prioritization. Well, except that we already do have that. They already do have paid prioritization. In fact, there are rules that exist already that allow ISPs to provide something called isolated network capacity for telemedicine. Not only that, but as Ars Technica has previously written about, voice over IP phone offerings, heart monitors, and energy consumption sensors are also allowed under the same exception to the net neutrality rules. That exception that they are complaining about. Oh, I'm sorry, the exception that they want, or they're using to try to destroy net neutrality rules. So, you understand that they're basically, again, they're lying. Oh, we don't have any exceptions. If we only could get rid of these regulations, we could do things that benefit people, except that you already have carve-outs that allow you to do the very things that you're complaining about. So, that you're trying to use as a justification in 2014. Now, Pi's plan to eliminate the rules will allow ISPs to offer higher speeds over the network's so-called last mile. Now, that is the part of the internet that actually leads directly to the consumer's homes, and will also offer the fast lanes to any type of online business that wishes to pay for it. So the impacts, of course, on these businesses will be huge. It's not oh, this business chooses to do so in the free market and this business chooses not to have the fast lane. No, everybody's going to have the fast lane or they're going to lose customers. Now, imagine going to an online store and you just see the buffering symbol. You're not going to want to shop there. You're not going to want to wait. Like, fuck this. I'm going to go to the bigger guy that actually has faster internet so I can actually browse their store. Again, you can see how this is devastating towards small businesses. This is basically setting up an internet toll road. Okay. Hey, if I want to compete as a small business, it looks like I'm going to have to pay the toll. Again, we pay access to the internet already. We pay the ISPs once in order to access the internet. Now they're saying, well, if you want to actually have faster internet, even though it's not technically faster, you have to pay us more because we're going to slow everybody else down. It's insane. So we're going to have to pay extra just to have halfway decent internet speed. Which, by the way, is still not on par with the rest of the world. As I mentioned before, the rest of the world still has faster internet than we do. It's outrageous. This is almost like healthcare, even though it doesn't have the same sort of implications, of course, but the pay model is kind of the same. The other countries happen to pay less and actually get more, while Americans end up paying more than the rest of the world and actually get less because these corporations will screw us over in order to make a profit because we don't regulate them or because we don't have enough competition or public utilities. Now, there are cities that have actually been laying fiber optic cable that is actually substantially faster than the offerings from these giant telecom companies. So what are they doing? Are they lowering their prices to compete? Are they actually investing in more of their infrastructure? I mean, that's what they're saying that they're going to do, right? No, that's not what they're doing. They're actually trying to use their lobbying power to prevent these cities from actually going in and creating these fiber optic networks. Anything to try and retain customers except improving their infrastructure, lowering their prices, and creating better service. Those are the things that they will not do, but they will use any other trick in the book in order to keep your money and to extract more and more from their customers. This is the American business model. This is predatory capitalism. And this is what Ajit Pai is hoping to exacerbate by eliminating these net neutrality rules. So this is why we need net neutrality, okay? Without it, there is nothing here to stop these companies from doing exactly what they promised not to do. We don't believe their promises, okay? Look, if they were printed out, they wouldn't be worth the paper they were printed on. And this is the proof. Comcast is already looking to implement paid prioritization. They're just waiting. They're waiting. They're ready. Now look, this isn't a loss yet. We can still fight it. Call the FCC, email them, get a hold of them, let them know where you stand. Do whatever you can, but keep fighting and you know, just let them know. Do not destroy net neutrality. Okay. I believe I had a few connection issues during that segment. So if you want to watch it, of course, you can watch it later on. We'll have it up on YouTube. And of course, patrons, you guys can go and get the show whenever you want. So, again, net neutrality isn't even gone, and I'm already having internet trouble. So I pay that $93, and look what I get. Terrible. Okay. We got a couple more stories for you guys. We've got Michael Flynn and the Washington Post. So, all right. And I do believe my connection seems to be working now, so hey, at least it works. Okay. Now, ABC News has reported that the lawyer for President Trump's former national security advisor, this is Michael T. Flynn, met Monday morning with members of Mueller's team, which has some people wondering if Flynn is getting ready to flip on Donald Trump. Now, that would be very, very interesting. Now, Trump's legal team confirmed last week that Flynn's attorney, Robert Kellner, had alerted the team that he could no longer engage in privileged discussions with defense strategy in the case. Now, that's also very interesting. So quite simply, he's like, I'm going to meet with Mueller, and by the way, Trump, I can no longer coordinate with this defense. Okay, not in privileged discussions, which also could consist of evidence and things that the Mueller team would love to know that they could use against anybody else that's being targeted in the Mueller probe. So again, looking at those two little pieces of evidence, one could easily come to the conclusion that Flynn could be prepared to negotiate with prosecutors over a deal that could include his testimony against the president or any other senior White House officials related to this probe or any sort of financial corruption. That's interesting. Now, if this is true, this is monumental, okay? Not only for nailing Flynn for corruption, but it also could lead to Trump. Now, ABC News explains that the process would typically include a series of off-the-record discussions, which prosecutors lay out in detail for Flynn and his lawyers the fruits of their investigation into their activities. So basically, it's like, the team says, the Mueller team says, here's what we got on you. Now, prosecutors could also provide Flynn an opportunity to offer what is called a proffer, detailing what information, if any, he has that could implicate others in wrongdoing, and they could go forward to make some sort of deal. Now, that reminds me of a possible deal that they made. Well, not possible. They actually did make a deal, but I don't know the details of that. But the deal with George Papadopoulos, which of course ended in the arrest of Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. So, I mean, that was what happened with Mueller Monday. So it turned out earlier Papadopoulos possibly wore a wire because he had gotten arrested earlier. And they're like, hey, let's make a deal. You go and be an informant. You help me get Manafort. Papadopoulos is like, absolutely, man. Trump threw me by the wayside. So, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to be an informant. And I'm going to see if I can get a deal. So that's possibly what Flynn could be going for. Now, what's important here is how close Flynn actually was with President Trump and with certain foreign interests that have interested the Mueller team. One of them, of course, is their connection between between Russia and Flynn, as well as Turkey and Flynn. And we'll get into details about that. Now, sources familiar with the discussions between Flynn's legal team and Trump's attorneys did tell ABC News that while there was never a formal signed joint defense agreement, so this is them kind of going, oh, no, they're playing it off here, that there was no joint defense agreement between Flynn's defense counsel and other targets of the Mueller probe, the lawyers had engaged in privileged discussions for months. Those privileged discussions now no longer involve Flynn's lawyers. Now, Jay Sekulow, a member of Trump's legal team, told ABC News last week that the break was not entirely unexpected. And you could, of course, speculate on the reasons why. He said that no one should draw the conclusion that this means anything about General Flynn cooperating against the president. True, but that doesn't exactly negate the possibility that he is working against the president either. Especially when you consider the motivation behind a possible deal. See, it's more than just about saving his ass. Sources familiar with the Flynn investigation have told ABC News that Flynn has felt increased pressure since prosecutors began focusing attention on his son, Michael G. Flynn, who works as part of the Flynn Intel group. Now, that group got themselves in a little bit of trouble. Now, the younger Flynn also traveled with his father back in 2015 to Russia, where he decided to sit back next to Vladimir Putin. Now, that doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of people that have sat next to Putin. Jill Stein sat next to Putin. That doesn't mean that she's conspiring with the Russians, okay? It doesn't mean that it's guilty, but this investigation, remember, they're looking at different kinds of corruption, and the Russian government isn't exactly not corrupt. It's not the opposite of corrupt. They're incredibly corrupt. They might even be more corrupt than the United States. I know. That's super difficult to hear. But, again, that country's government is built on corruption. So, anyway. Now, how this relates to Flynn Jr. is, look, he might have been up to some shady business. Now, for his father, Democrats in Congress have told ABC News that they forwarded information to the Mueller team alleging that the elder Flynn illegally concealed more than a dozen foreign contacts and overseas trips during the process of renewing security clearances. Representatives Elijah Cummings and Elliot Engel wrote in a letter to Flynn's attorney, quote, "It appears that General Flynn violated federal law by omitting this trip and these foreign contacts from his security clearance renewal application in 2016, and concealing them from security clearance investigators who interviewed him as part of the background check process." Now, the thing about that is, well, that's actually illegal. You can't do that. Why? And the other thing is, why would you want to do that? I mean, look, if the trip is harmless, which there are a lot of trips that are harmless, including trips to Russia. Somebody could go to Russia to, I don't know, visit the museums. They could go and discuss certain business that is completely legal. And again, if there's nothing on you, then even the most McCarthyite Democrat wouldn't have anything on you, especially if you're upfront about it. Now, for Flynn, he's like, yeah, I wanted to work with the Russians to, some sort of nuclear deal, right? In fact, there is, Flynn had actually advised 3 different companies in 2015 and 2016 that were pursuing a joint nuclear venture with the Russian government. Now, look, if you're part of a company that does that kind of advising, then okay, that's fine. There's nothing weird about that. Yes, go and give these companies advice. That's fine. But again, there is possibility that this could lead into other avenues of corruption, and that's what they're looking at here. So what makes it suspicious is the fact that he decided to not talk about those and to not talk about different contacts. That's a little weird. If you've done nothing wrong, conservatives love to say this, then what do you have to hide? Why would you hide this, especially at risk of possible criminal penalties? Okay, again, this is about 5 years in jail you can get from this. Now, the thing is that what Flynn did and did not disclose ended up inviting this investigation into him and his son. Now, that includes failing to declare a December 2015 trip to Russia, as I mentioned, where he sat next to Putin, for which he was paid $33,000. So he was paid money to go to Russia. Again, sitting next to Putin doesn't really, it's not really suspicious in my point of view, but I could see how getting paid to go there and then constant trips, things like that could be a little bit of a cause for concern, at least to look into. Okay. In March 2017, Flynn submitted a late filing with the Department of Justice under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Okay. So that reveals that the Flynn Intel Group was paid $530,000 for 3 months of work on behalf of a Dutch firm owned by a Turkish businessman with close ties to the Turkish government. So again, okay, that's not too terribly strange, other than the fact that why would you just forget to file with the Department of Justice that you're a foreign agent? Again, if you're working on behalf of a country, for example, Turkey or Russia, whatever, okay, just let us know. That's all we require. It's not like it's super hard to do. Why hide it? Again, weird. Now, what's weirder, and I reported on this earlier, they're interested in his alleged role in a bizarre plot to kidnap Turkish dissident, cleric Fethullah Gulen, who's living in exile in rural Pennsylvania. So there is this guy, this Turkish cleric that's living out on the farm somewhere in Pennsylvania. And Michael Flynn is alleged to be part of a plot to kidnap him and send him back to Turkey. That's crazy. In fact, you had, according to reporting from Wall Street Journal, as well as a former CIA director, James Woolsey, who confirmed it to ABC News, that Flynn had allegedly raised the idea of kidnapping this guy and sending him back to Turkey. So it wasn't that Flynn was actually just sitting in the meeting and overheard this and was like, oh, wow, I don't know, Bob, that seems a little out there. Kidnapping a guy? I mean, really? No, he was a guy that's like, maybe we should kidnap him and send him back. Because again, he's a friend of the Turkish government. He's worked on behalf of the Turkish government. And the Turkish government really wants this guy because they think that he's involved in a failed coup attempt. So, okay, super weird. Super weird. Now, Woolsey says, I won't say that they had firmly decided to do that, which is obvious because he's still here. And he didn't get busted for attempting to kidnap him. But Woolsey says they were seriously considering it. Big red flag. Really strange. Now, aside from those things, he also did lie to Vice President Pence about his conversations with Russian officials during the presidential transition. That led to him, of course, being fired after just 24 days on the job. Big red flag, right? All this different stuff, all these different connections, when you look at them individually, okay, fine, right? maybe seems a little off, except for the kidnapping, which is a major red flag, as I said. But you take everything together, Flynn's hiding something. And maybe Mueller's got him. Maybe Mueller knows what that is, or at least has an idea what that is, and Flynn knows about it. That's my speculation, at least. Look, the question is, doing all this stuff, if it was legit, why hide it? Now, there is one thing here that might answer that question, and that's the ability for the president to give pardons. Now, look, if you know that you're getting a presidential pardon and you know you've done these things wrong, well, then you would just shut up. Like, no, I'm not going to work with you guys. I'm not going to do a deal because I know the president's going to come in and save my ass. The thing is, though, is that the politics of a presidential pardon, thanks to the investigation cloud hanging over Trump's head, has gotten really bad. It would look incredibly bad and incredibly damning politically. So, and even if nobody did anything wrong, the optics of it are just absolutely terrible. So this might even prompt even further investigation, especially after President Trump had done obstruction of justice when he fired James Comey from the FBI, who was originally doing this investigation. So again, anything that Trump does, whether it be a pardon or any other attempt at, to obstruct justice, it's going to look really bad. And it's going to just make it even worse for him. So, and that's assuming that he still has pardon powers. Okay. So in the absence of the pardon, which Flynn could still be holding out on, he might just go, okay, look, it's pretty obvious that I'm not going to get any backing from the White House. And I really don't want prison time for me and my son, even if it is only, at least one of the charges is 5 years. Okay, here's what I know about President Trump and the dealings, possible deals that he has with Russia. Now, that's how it could go down, assuming that there is anything for him to know. And on that, we don't know. Now, personally, I do think that there is. And I think there's, and I can point to a lot of circumstantial evidence. I know it's not hard concrete, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that when I look at it all together, I think, no, there's got to be some sort of financial or political deal between Putin and Trump. I mean, hey, he's not a smart person. He's like, hey, you're going to help me beat Hillary Clinton? Okay, what do you want in return? Oh, you want me to get rid of the sanctions? I could do that. Except that he can't do that because they stopped him from doing that. And curiously, he won't actually enforce the sanctions that the Congress passed. Look, whether you disagree or agree with the sanctions or not, that's one thing. But Congress passed those sanctions. It's the president's job to actually enforce them, especially when they have the power that they can override his veto, which he's like, I want to veto these sanctions, but I can't because Congress will just override my veto, and there goes the sanctions. Again, like I said, there's a lot of coincidence in here, and I don't blame anybody for being skeptical. I get it. I really do. Look, and you can blame a lot of the media, and you can blame the Democrats for that, for, being McCarthyite. Totally get it. And, of course, everywhere you turn, Russia, Russia, Russia. Totally understand why you would be skeptical of this. But as I said, I do personally believe, based on what I've seen so far, and I haven't seen anything that you guys haven't seen, and we all just come to different conclusions on this, but I do believe that there is some sort of a deal, especially considering how Trump's not very smart. So, of course he would do something that is stupid and reckless. But again, that's just my opinion on this, okay? Now, I don't know if he's indebted to Russia. There's another thing. But I think that the Russians are the only people that are left that would actually give Donald Trump any money. Again, nobody else is dumb enough or corrupt enough to be able to give Donald Trump money because he's a failed businessman. He loses money everywhere he goes. This is a guy who crashed 3 casinos in Atlantic City. This guy doesn't even know how to win in a casino. There are so many banks that he has burned by not paying them back, taking out gigantic loans, and then just saying, oh, I'm going to declare bankruptcy. No, these banks see him as a complete risk. However, I think a foreign power, whether it be Russia or whether it be France, could see Donald Trump as, hey, man, we can loan him some money, but now we own your ass. And you kind of do what we want. I don't know why France would do it, but Russia certainly might have a motive to get rid of the Magnitsky Act sanctions that actually did prevent a gigantic oil deal between Russia and ExxonMobil that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson really was banking on. It's a $500 million oil deal. Again, this always comes down to business. It comes down to money. So, and of course, with Hillary Clinton, we weren't going to get any sort of repeal of any of these Russian sanctions. If anything, Hillary Clinton would have done more sanctions. So it would definitely have been in Putin's interest and ExxonMobil's interest to have Donald Trump win the election. And all these different oil companies' business interest to have Donald Trump as president. So that's what I think. And again, you can disagree with me, and that's fine. We all right now do not know the whole truth of the matter. And so if you want to be skeptical, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to hold that against you at all. So now as for Flynn, what I think about him, look, these transgressions could end up proving very useful to prosecutors. The things that he has been found, the things that he has not done, the things that he has kept from people, from investigators, as well as government officials. Look, this could be very useful to Mueller's team. That could make Flynn talk. And if Flynn knows anything, well, it could be bad for President Trump. Now, again, this is all completely possible, or maybe it won't happen, but we won't know until Mueller makes a move. Just like we didn't know about Paul Manafort until Manafort got arrested. So, look, personally, if I were Michael Flynn, I'd talk. I'd sing like a canary. It's because, and it's not because, I'm letting my personal bias against President Trump influence that decision. Actually, it's because I know that President Trump isn't anyone who's worth being loyal to. Like, if you believed in loyalty, right? And I am a believer in loyalty, right? In certain respects, right? So Trump is not somebody who honors that loyalty back. I mean, he loves it when you're loyal to him, but whenever his self-interest becomes involved, he is no longer loyal to you. He is more than happy to throw you under the bus. I mean, once you stop being useful to him, that's it. You're gone. Again, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Chris Christie, even Jared Kushner now. They've all been on the receiving end of that. He's been more than happy to throw Kushner under the bus. And that's family. And that's nepotism right there. Because Kushner is a bumbling idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. But he's in that White House, and he was an advisor to President Trump. Well, it still is. But look, you guys remember the story, or maybe you didn't remember the story that I did when I talked about that. How he was saying, oh, Kushner giving me bad advice. I'm not going to listen to Kushner anymore. He's an idiot. That's what happens when you're loyal to Trump. Why anybody would remain loyal to him, I have no idea. Maybe it's the promise of power. I don't know. Or maybe it's because he still has the power, maybe, to save your ass. I don't know. But I do know that if Flynn decides to turn on the president, well, then it could mean a disaster. At least, like I said, that's my opinion. Okay. Wow. I think I'll wait for tomorrow. Because this is going to take another 20 minutes. And I got to get some things done. I got to get the editing done and all that stuff. So I'm going to save the story for tomorrow. Oh, no. Damn it. I can't. I believe we have Ron Placone tomorrow on the show. Hey, Ron's back for another week. Hopefully. If he's here, we've got some other stories. I'll save this one for Thursday. This, of course, is a Washington Post story. on how they went after, well, Project Veritas goes after the Washington Post. Washington Post actually ends up destroying Project Veritas. Awesome. So that's a super fun story. But we'll have that on Thursday or tomorrow if Ron Placone is not here. So speaking of what we're going to have on the show tomorrow, we're going to talk about Bernie Sanders at least. We'll talk about more corruption inside of the Democratic Party. And we'll try to maybe see what we can go, how we can go forward in the progressive movement. So it'll be good. All right. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you guys that I have time for today. Thank you for staying. Thank you for giving us a like and a share. Thank you to the patrons. Thank you to everybody who uses the super chat. Nicholas today. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night to you, T Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.